Roll call.
Here.
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 Yeah.
Here.
Is there anybody who wishes to speak to the council about something that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, consent agenda.
Sorry. Item A, minutes of the August 2nd, 2021 meeting. Item B, claims. Item C, renewal Class C liquor license for Lorana, including outdoor service area. Item D, renewal Class E liquor license for Walmart Supercenter, including Class B wine, Class C beer, and Sunday sales privileges. Item E, renewal Class C liquor license for Rubiat, including Sunday sales, outdoor service area, living quarters, and catering privileges. Item F, renewal of special Class C beer wine license for Fairfield Marriott, including Sunday sales. Item G, special event application for the Sugar Bowl, 410 West Water Street, August 27th, 5 to 9 p.m. for a 1950s-inspired sock hop event. Item H, a special event application for Impact Coffee every Thursday, September and October, 4 p.m. to 10 p.m., including outdoor service area privileges each Thursday through October. Item I, special event application, Walk to End Elsheimer's. Setup will be the 17th from 5 to 7 p.m. here at City Hall, and then the walk is September 18th from 6 a.m. till noon. Item J, resolution 3210, setting a public hearing for the dry run recreational trail easement, September 7th, 2021, 5:45 p.m.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Can you tell me about Resolution 3210?
I was asked to
I don't
put
see anything in
this.
Dropbox.
Nope, because there was nothing in, I was not given anything. This is a easement that's kind of been hanging out there. John, can you shed some light on it?
Yes, and I apologize. I can get something for you to put in Dropbox. This is an easement related to the connecting trail between Trout Run and the Prairie Farmer Trail, and it's an easement on, I'll call it the Beard Grouse Farm, kind of across from J.B. Holland, that area. And the city actually owns land over there. It's outside the city limits. And since we would be giving an easement essentially to the county for the recreational trail, we have to set a public hearing on this matter. Jeremy also can probably fill you in on important details, but it's similar to Trout Run Trail easements that the city may have given in the past.
Okay. I just don't like to vote on something that I don't understand or have any reference material.
Right, and as I understand it, it's just an easement, there's no
Right.
cost
Okay.
to the city for it.
Yep.
So,
That's fine.
And this
Thank
is
you.
just setting the public hearing.
Right.
it's just setting the
Yep,
public
but yeah.
hearing.
No, good
But yet we
policy.
should know what
Yeah.
it is, yeah?
Yeah,
Well, it helped for me to know that it was out on the highway, but where the cats are, you know,
Yeah.
that helped a lot. At least I got on the right side of the street. Any other further discussion? Roll call.
Chisel.
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Hadley.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Conduct public hearing regarding a proposal to vacate a stormwater and utility easement located at Lot 3 of 8 River Walk, 2nd Edition, 704 Serenity Drive. Any background on that?
Okay, and again, I'm going to have John explain this. This is something that he asked to have put on the agenda and that he's been working with.
Okay.
So this came about actually in my private practice, did a title opinion for somebody, and working with buyer and seller. So I'm going to actually hand it off to them, to Steve Munkle, to explain it. But basically the background here is During title exam, what came up was there's actually a stormwater easement that was on this property that the owner is asking to be vacated. And Jeremy also can give some background on it too, because he's looked into to this. But the property's got a lot of interesting history as far as the development there as well. So Steve
Okay.
Munkel is here.
Okay, what I'm gonna do is open the public hearing, and I'll have Steve come up. Just come up and state your name and address. You might have to pull up the,
Excuse me, Steve, if I, just for reference, in the July 6th Dropbox, there's actually a packet in there for when the public hearing was set. There's especially a plat, so that may be a useful thing to look at, so you have a reference point.
okay. So
Okay.
perhaps in relation to, where is this at exactly?
Okay. Steve Munkel, first of all,
Thank you.
here in Decorah. That's where I grew up. Anyway, so the easiest way to explain this is if you're looking at the greenhouse from Mound Street, this easement is in the first lot directly behind the greenhouse. And it actually goes right up to the greenhouse. It's 20-foot easement into the lot directly behind it. And I think the next two agendas here are similar. It goes into, I think, 3 lots total. And this easement was, according to Lindsay Erdman, initially produced for the large buildings that were going to be built many years ago. They needed a storm sewer to draw water out of that north part, and then they wanted to do it as utilities of any sort, because the buildings were so big that it was going to be difficult to get some of this product to the building and the storm sewer out of the parking areas. So that's why it was recreated. And over time, of course, we've developed it into a residential thing that doesn't require anything. And nothing was ever put in this easement. So we're trying to just clean up some stuff that's out there that really doesn't need to be there. And I've gone around and talked to a lot of the people around it. It's just really, as if you looked at this piece of ground here, it's an easement in that section, nothing's in it. It's more of a case where we don't want to ever have the possibility of something going in it because it's there, honestly. Because the neighborhood is a residential thing, lawns are done, everything. There's no point.
Okay,
But-
what I'm gonna do is see, you can stay there for a minute.
Uh-huh.
Is there anybody who wishes to speak to this in the public meeting?
Can we, I have a question.
Sure.
So you don't want anything to be built in this area, correct?
Well, everything's built. It'd be a utility. It'd be going in the ground.
Right.
So, but there's no need for it because all the utilities are in the front of all the buildings going around the street. So there's no need for any utilities in the back at all for anyone on Mound Street or in the addition directly behind.
July 6th.
July 6th.
Mr. Munkel, when you did talk to some of the neighbors, did anyone object or was anyone opposed to
No,
this?
once I explained that it's just like drawing a line on the ground and there's nothing in it.
Okay,
They had no,
just making sure.
yeah.
Okay, now I'll ask again, is there anybody who wants to speak to this public hearing? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Then it's consider resolution 3211, approving the vacation of stormwater and utility easement located at Lot 3 of 8, Riverwalk, 2nd Edition, 704 Serenity Drive.
I'd move for approval of resolution 3211.
Is that the back set line? Is that lot 3? Building setback line?
Well, and Jeremy can explain this better than I can, but there's a 10-foot setback line, and overlaying that is a 20-foot stormwater and utility easement. So
So the 10 foot of the setback and another 10 feet is the current.
the 10-foot setback would remain.
Right, but it covers 20 feet easement currently, that's what you're saying?
Correct, correct.
Back 10 more feet.
Yep, correct.
And sidewalk's already in here, it looks like. In that 10 feet, right there. That's not a sidewalk, that's just curb.
You're talking about on Serenity?
Mm-hmm.
There's no sidewalks in front of this property yet. They were shown in the plat, I believe, though.
Oh, okay. Well, my only point is that it ends where this easement is. The sidewalk would end. So if we abandon it, I would want to make sure that sidewalks would be put in when they were developed, because it's shown on the plat, but not there. John, does that make sense?
I think I see what you're saying, Ross. You're talking about in the very northeast corner of that lot?
Where our easement is, the 10-foot easement, yeah?
Yeah,
The sidewalk is platted,
right.
but
I-
it's not in the easement area. I would just want to make sure that
I think,
if we abandon the easement, that the sidewalk would continue to something meaningful.
right, and maybe what you could do to confirm that is have the motion be
Contingent.
contingent on retaining, because there is a 10-foot utility and sidewalk easement there that I think you're referring to, that I probably due to a quirk of the drawing of the plat, doesn't appear there where
Right.
the,
Where the utility
yep,
easement
where
is.
the utility easement is.
So I want to just make
Yep.
sure, if we put a motion forth, that the sidewalk would continue as
I-
well for continuity within that development.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate and can be done with with the motion. Make it contingent on that.
Yeah, we have an motion, we don't have a second, but
With that contingency, but I think that that's part of the development agreement in there too, the sidewalks. With when Eldon Tucker started developing that
can you
area.
turn your mic on and get
It is.
closer? Thank you.
I think that was part of the development agreement we had with Eldon Tucker too, when he did that. He had a rebatable TIF and he needed to put sidewalks in before he got his rebates.
Yeah, I probably would agree with that also, but I think it'd be good to have it in the
Yeah, no,
motion.
and that's fine. That's why
Okay.
I'll amend that to say, approve resolution 3211 with contingency that sidewalks remain during as it gets developed.
Okay.
Luce would second that.
Motion made by Chisel, seconded by Luce. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Chisel.
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Hadley.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Discussion and possible action on establishing a redistricting committee. I'd asked Ben to be here, and so I'm going to have him come up. Once I started talking to both him and John Lupke, it was clear that there was more information than I would know how to pass on, so I'll
Yeah,
let
so
you.
Ben Steinis, County Auditor, I thought I'd come up, Lorraine asked me to come up and talk a little bit about redistricting. So cities like Decorah, unlike the other 7 cities in Winnebago County, have wards, so you have to establish wards after this census that took place last year. And the county has to establish the supervisor districts, because we have supervisor districts. Not every county has supervisor districts, so this is different counties and cities do it differently because they have different organization methods. But to do your wards, you need to have 5, you have 5 wards, you need to have 5 equal population areas within the city divided up. And when I say equal population, it's not like down to the person, but it's still pretty strict in the law. The law requires you to take the population of the city, divide it by the number of wards, and then you get a 1% variance from that number. So just to use round numbers, if you have 7,500 people in Decorah, that's 1,500 per ward, and so you're talking plus or minus 15 people population-wise for those wards. Now, the population doesn't always reflect the voter registration because the population doesn't take into account people who aren't old enough to register to vote, or people maybe who can't register to vote because of some other reason, or people who don't choose to register to vote. It only takes into account the population. And so to establish those wards, you want to use, I mean, Wanda was probably here back when it was like a jigsaw puzzle. You had these census blocks, and you basically kind of started putting them together on paper and trying to figure out how to get these populations to be equal, that kind of thing. Now we use GIS or computer technology to help draw some lines and see how close we are. I mean, the ultimate goal, I think, is to make these as close to equal population as you can, and using pretty, well-known boundaries for the wards. So your current plan is actually very clean in that you're using Water Street and Montgomery Street and College Drive and Fifth Avenue, and so you're using those streets that people know where they are. You don't want to like zigzag block by block through residential neighborhoods and say, these are going to be in different wards, because then that is confusing for voters to know how do I know what ward I'm in, especially if you have these zigzaggy lines. So another point is that the law is very clear, and that you can't consider where current elected officials live, or you can't consider what the voter registration parties or status of people who live in those areas. So that is not part of the consideration. The consideration is just to make it a clean, evenly divided map. And so at the county level, because our county supervisors are elected by partisan basis, the code establishes this kind of complex and rigorous system of party members on the Board of Supervisors appoint people to a redistricting commission, and then the people of the other party appoint members to a redistricting commission to make this group that's going to okay this. Back in the day where it was putting the jigsaw puzzle pieces together, it was a lot of time consumed. When we did this 10 years ago, the redistricting commission, basically we put a lot of our, we let our GIS coordinator, John Lupke, put together here's some possible maps that meet all the rules, look fairly clean. It's harder at the county level because we get these, they call them census blocks. The census takes chunks and divides them up. In the city, it's, mostly city blocks. Sometimes they're cut by, a river or a stream or something might cut one city block in two, or they might combine some if you got some little pieces, or they put them together in one chunk. I know there was an issue I think it was 20 years ago at Luther, where they just put like all Luther in one big block. Well, it was too big to even fit in a ward, so you had to go back and ask them to divide this up a little bit for us. But at the county, a lot of our blocks are like sections, so 1 mile square or something, or divided by these, the roads aren't nearly as close together, so then it's kind of harder to make it look clean as it is here, where we can take these little pieces and we can get closer to that population. So at the county, we have to have this group that basically okays it. So 10 years ago, Wanda actually sat on our group, was appointed by the Board of Supervisors to sit on the redistricting commission 10 years ago, and she's been appointed to do so this year, because we try to take your wards and put them in as a whole into our supervisor districts, because we don't want, that gets confusing for voters too. Well, where's my ward boundary versus where's my supervisor district boundary? So we kind of have to work together with what you're doing here when we're doing ours. And I think John Lukey put together like 3 different possible maps that met all the rules, that were fairly clean, not as clean as yours, but fairly clean as far as what roads we were going to use to do our divisions and so on. And then the redistricting commission basically looked at those and thought from a general person perspective, what makes the most sense. So then they chose one of those and took it forward, and then ultimately the Board of Supervisors had to hold a public hearing and approve it before it went on. So it has to go from local approval, goes to the Secretary of State, where they review it and make sure that it meets all these rules, and kind of they give their blessing, and then at the county supervisor district one, then it goes yet a step further to the Legislative Service Agency, which is a nonpartisan group that works at with the state representatives and state house people, and they have to give the ultimate approval to that it's clean. Iowa kind of sets the gold standard nationwide as far as having a very non-political, or at least bipartisan when there is politics involved, approach to redistricting. So we don't have the issues that you see in a lot of other states where you get these really weird and funky looking districts that are trying to meet somebody's political perspective as what would be beneficial. So I guess that's kind of the overview. I know that at your level, you don't have this kind of rigorous, here's your commission, what they're supposed to do, and that the clerk's office has kind of taken those rules, and when it comes out as clean as it did last time, it's pretty obvious. But whether you want to establish some sort of committee or people to help make the decision if this map looks good or not before bringing it to the whole council, I guess that's up to you. But I thought I'd come and give you some information to kind of think about while you're doing that.
A couple questions.
Yep.
One, the maps that are created.
Mm-hmm.
I know Jeremy had said he's got software too.
Right.
But really what the council would be looking at the 3 maps and looking just at the city part.
Right.
And then offering suggestions to you as far as if there was anything.
Well, the city is required to approve their wards earlier than the county is. So we probably can't really get going on establishing our supervisor districts until you're done. And so but we want to be kind of included in knowing how close are you, and if you think you have one that's going to go forward, then we can start working with that at our level. So whether it's Jeremy or John Lupke or whoever's going to help you put together this, if you want to start with one and see if everyone likes it, or if you want to start with a few and choose one or whatever, that's kind of your procedural thing, how you want to do that. But we want to be included then at the re-precincting, redistricting at the county level too.
I can see the need for the partnership. The other question I had was, I believe the date that had been set was September 1st for the city. Do you know if that has changed?
I don't think that has changed. The county's is October 15th, so we get a little time after you're done because we're taking your things and putting them together. Luckily for you, if you were one of the big cities in Iowa where your city might be divided into separate state house or state senate districts, then you're going to be, I don't know how those cities will meet their deadline, because they have to do, just like we're going to wait for your wards, everyone has to wait for those state house and state senate districts, because those can't be divided by the rules. So, but at least usually around here, Decorah and most of the county end up in the same state house or state senate district, but there's always, seems like a little bit in the western part of the county that has to go with another county, so we have to wait for that. But I think you probably don't have to worry about that, but that will be something. You won't be able to approve yours at least until you know for sure that those state districts don't somehow divide the city limits.
And what questions did the council have for Ben?
Okay, so, but
Yeah.
I have one. So have you gotten any formal dates? Because I'm assuming it'll be September 22nd of 22 at this point.
Of 22?
We couldn't possibly get it done by September of 21.
It'll be sometime this year. The re-precinct, now they might be a little lax on if they change any dates when it has to be done, but it needs to be done this year because by law, any election held after January 15th of 22 has to be held using the new
districts.
The new districts. So yes, maybe the September and October dates that are normally in place are either impossible for some localities that they won't be able to get them done by then.
Right.
But they aren't gonna push it back very far, I
Well,
don't
we
think.
have to publish the map and have a
Mhm.
public hearing, and
Yeah.
this is the 16th of August.
Exactly, exactly. And
Right.
actually, they aren't, the census is releasing the census data in their new format, whatever that is, that's supposed to be easier to use, and they're gonna provide, there's gonna be some recommended software to use it and so on, but that isn't even coming out till the end of September. But they did provide the numbers. John Lukey's actually started crunching them, like at the end of last week, or maybe it was even this morning, in the legacy format, which is what we used 10 years ago. And since he already has the software set up, the problem with that is it isn't as easy to manipulate, but he's done it before, so he's already been starting to convert that into our GIS system. So he can start manipulating those numbers.
Yeah.
That data.
He did ours 10 years ago. And yeah, I have sat and done that by hand.
Yes.
Wow.
I can't imagine
Yeah,
doing it that way, yeah.
Never want to do that again when it's
I'll
just
just
as
tell you, I
easy as
think
having the
Wanda
GIS.
told me 10 years ago, she's like, this is the last time I'm ever going through the census. And here
Last
she's
time I was
sitting
gonna
here
do the
again,
census.
so, you know.
Well, and this has,
But with a memory. Yep. No,
like,
it's not
yeah.
10 more years.
so this does not have any effect on this year's election at all.
Not
It's
on
for
this year.
next
This year's
election.
November election will use the current wards.
Gotcha.
Right.
It takes effect January 15th of '22. So if there's any special elections or any elections after that, the primary and general next year, all will be done under the new map. But the current map is used through January 15th.
With the transition the city's looking at, do the supervisors appoint the office of city clerk / treasurer or a person?
They don't,
That's for
they
them.
don't appoint anybody.
Yeah,
They
you
have a-
mean for the Winnebago County District?
For the county redistricting commission,
Right.
the board as a whole decides how many people they want on the commission. So they decided 5. That's been kind of traditionally what we've done. And then the code stipulates that the majority party, political party, since our supervisors are partisan supervisors, the majority party appoints a majority of the members on that commission, and then the minority party appoints the other members. So they choose people not necessarily because of their party affiliation, but the majority party did choose Wanda and John Lupke to be on our commission just because of the experience they've had doing it, plus the need to cooperate in the
So like,
process. So
let's see, I've got, just to be clear, is Wanda appointed because she has worked with it from the city, or is she appointed because of her political background? No offense.
She
that's-
was appointed by the Republican part of the group,
Okay,
but it had nothing really to do with what her, I don't even know what
No, that's
what
okay.
she's
That's okay.
registered as, but they asked the 5 people who did it, well, the 4 people that are still living that were on the group 10 years ago, and 3 of them said they would do it again. So those 3, 2 got appointed by the majority party and 1 by the minority party, and so then each party had to appoint 1 more person. And
so you have a total of 5, which is Carolyn Corbin, Don Wurzel, Brad Darling, John Lupke, and Wanda.
yeah,
That's 5, and that's
Yeah.
the county.
that's the county redistricting, reprecincting
Okay,
commission.
I just
Yeah,
wanted
and
to
so the
be somewhat
county's
clear.
redistricting, reprecincting commission also has something that the city doesn't do, where they have to draw the voting precincts as well. And so they'll divide, and there's whole nother set of rules about how many population and things that go with that. And so we try to keep that in line with those supervisor districts so that we don't end up, because each precinct is an expense for holding elections. So we try to keep that as few as we can, but still make it work. So we're going to need at least 10 just because of the population limits on those precincts. So
Is the data that we'll be using for the redistricting publicly available data?
it is public data, but the public availability, because what we are using right now, this legacy data, wouldn't do much good for a member of the public, because you need elaborate computer
Right,
system
if you had
to
ArcGIS,
crank.
if you had ArcGIS and access
Yes.
to viewing shapefiles,
I think,
would this
I think
be
you could
publicly
get this,
available?
yes. Yes, I think there's a website where you can just download it. It's my
Okay.
understanding.
I've been asked, or contacted by Haley Abbey, who's a Luther
Yes, in
political.
fact, Haley's here.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. Well, I'll just take a minute to introduce Haley. You want to stand up? Haley Abbey, who is a poli-sci major, along with some other things she's working with. And I did meet with her because
Okay.
she wants to do her senior paper. Wanda's been very beneficial in getting maps to her already, but I wanted to include her in this discussion, and anytime there's anything meeting, whether it's county or city, we'll make sure.
Well, and I know Luther does have a GIS department, so if they could have access to that shapefile, and she could use that as a part of her learning tools, and it could be independently reviewed at the same time on our behalf and within the paper, if she's interested in that, I think that would be great, just from a transparency standpoint of data. You know, if Jeremy can have a copy of the shapefile and Haley can have a copy of the shapefile, then that would be,
Okay, my question
Great.
is, go ahead.
Well, no, are you suggesting John do the layout, the GIS mapping, and then Haley and Jeremy review it? Is that what you're?
well, they all have the access to the same tool. So
Right.
yes, if John can put something together because he has done it in the past and has the process down, he could export, in my limited understanding, he could export that file and share it with Jeremy and with Luther. You know, Abby, you may or may not know how to use ArcGIS, but, you know,
Well, she could work with Jeremy.
She
and
could
get it
even
through
work with Jeremy to
Sure.
look at it.
Yeah.
yep. And then that way, we could all have eyes on the data, and in one way or another, publicly, and review it. I think that would be my ask.
And I think we have more, what other questions do you have?
Ben, first and foremost, thanks for coming tonight and
Yeah,
giving
no
us
problem.
this history lesson. It's nice to have that. And kind of piggybacking off of Ross's question, has the redistricting commission in the past been publicly, or is the general public allowed to
Yeah,
attend
it's
those?
a public meeting.
Okay,
Yep.
it is? Okay.
Yep.
Well, I guess my question is really to council. I mean, I think it comes down to, do we want to be the reviewer of the map, or do we want to appoint a commission? You know, could we take, I mean, maybe we don't need a 5-member commission, but maybe we throw it out there with a 3-member commission. I still like the idea of Jeremy and Haley working on it.
Yeah.
But then if there were I'm always looking for more citizen involvement. This seems like a place where we should include citizen involvement. So it seems to me if we asked for, 3 community volunteers who wanted to sit on a commission to not draw the lines, but to look at maybe different maps and scenarios and weigh in,
I
then we
think,
could get a lot more people.
I think the one thing is, if you're looking at a September 1st
But we're,
deadline,
but we're not.
I don't think we're going to get September
Right.
1st no matter what we do.
You're not getting
Yeah.
September 1st.
well,
I don't
what's the September 1st?
I think that I think that in years past, you've made September 1st, and had the census data come out in a timely manner, that wouldn't be an issue.
That
But
wouldn't
that
be an
isn't,
issue.
that isn't the case
Well,
this year.
the
so.
only thing is that we have to be conscious of the fact that we have to get ours in before the council, and the county can even
No,
look
I get
at
it, but we can't even approve ours until it's been published in the
When the
paper.
information's
So-
received, you have to move
Okay.
forward with it immediately.
Yep, and I think
That's the-
John
that's the
actually
key.
has already been
Yep.
by converting or manipulating, I don't know all the technical end
I
of it,
haven't
but
gotten anything
he's
yet.
already taken those census block data. So because of this legacy format thing, he has to first take the shape files or whatever, the blocks, and convert them and then he has to go and take the population numbers and add them in to those blocks. Anyway, he's already converting that, anticipating that the city's going to need to be starting this ASAP. So I think that he's got that in the back of his mind, that maybe within the next week or 2, you're ready to start.
Yeah. I haven't received anything.
Okay, well,
So,
he has it.
From
And
John or from the census?
I
From the
have
census.
seen that, emails have come to us as county auditors that
Okay.
the numbers are available in this legacy format.
Okay.
Again, I'll plead some ignorance on the technical end of the computer part of it, how you manipulate those,
Yep.
but
So what if we at least put out a call, and if we can get 3 people who are
What if-
interested?
Are you interested in having like 2 city council people with Jeremy, with Abby, and 1?
Well, I was trying to take it out of, I was trying to put it in the public hands, right? Thinking that not in our hands.
But if it's,
I mean,
Again,
if we can't get 3 people, I guess that's better
well,
than
I
nothing.
think
would be
that,
more of-
I really think that there needs to be city council involvement.
You can't, I don't think you can have city council involvement.
No.
You
That's a
can't. Okay,
We have
conflict
to,
of
that's
interest.
we have to approve it.
That's fine,
Of
that's
course you
fine.
have to approve it.
Okay.
But as far as drawing the lines,
I've got you.
that would be a conflict.
I
and-
And
I will tell you
I'm
right now,
I'm
I am
content
out.
with, I'm content with John Lubke and Wanda Hemeseth working on this
I
to
would
get it done.
I think we need to have public involvement. I mean, certainly beyond the way we've always done it. Truly, we are in a pretty contentious environment, and I think that we need to do it as other cities do it, which is a
And
commission.
I think we're on the road here to gerrymandering. And I think that.
No, I'm trying to avoid that.
No,
That
I
is what
think-
I'm trying to avoid. Any
Actually,
idea
I
that.
think the way to avoid that is to keep it non-political.
But Wanda has already been declared in the paper as a Republican. I mean, for the county. It listed her name.
No, she has not been declared.
No, in the paper, it listed the commission, the county commission, it listed the county, and it listed by party, right? So if,
what it listed is who the Republicans appointed. They could have appointed
right, but when you
Democrats
read
or.
it, when you read it.
I guess I didn't read the article
Yeah,
that
it
detailed.
is
I
the-
know who they appointed, and basically the majority party appointed 2 of the past people who served, and the minority party appointed 1 of the past people that served on their committee. And so then each party had to get 1 new person. And
Right, I'm just saying that-
those people's affiliation is, they didn't really take that into
It
consideration.
is listed that there are 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats on the county commission.
And the
I don't
reason,
think
and
we
the
should
reason
have-
John Lubke and Wanda Hemeseth are on there is because they're the 2 officials in the city and in the county who have to get these lines to match up appropriately, and I think, openly. I think, adding in a whole bunch of other folks who might want to draw a line here or there is maybe fine, but I'm confident that Wanda Hemeseth and John Lubke are credible people who will do the job and do it without any political interference.
And again, I'm not
They are
questioning.
They are public meetings.
Yes,
People can
exactly.
show up to them, so I'm very comfortable with John doing it because the computer is very easy to move the lines around to get the fairness of number of residents per ward. Plus, he would have then a head start on getting the county so that they can meet their deadlines and we're not putting anybody in behind. So I'm very confident in John Lubke doing this.
Ben, why
20
does the
20
county?
years ago, I was running for city council, and I got not gerrymandered, I got knocked out of my ward because the lines changed. And I'm confident that there was no intent to do that to Kirk Johnson. It just happened. And the lines get changed, and they happen rather arbitrarily and to fit the census data. I live on Leaf Erickson Drive, which is a main thoroughfare. I live close to the college, where I'm sure there were some changes in the census data, and it affected me. But never once did I think that I was being unfairly treated.
Yeah.
Let
What
me
do you-
ask
what
a
about
question.
the
Ben,
harm?
can I ask
Even
a question?
know I had done that.
Why does the county appoint a public commission and not just do it themselves? Why doesn't the Board of Supervisors do it themselves?
Because it's in the code of Iowa.
And why is it in the Code of Iowa?
I don't know that.
Probably the
I-
same reason the council isn't supposed to do it either.
Right.
Right. And I think back in the day where it was like I said, like a jigsaw puzzle, putting these chunks together and these chunks, it took a group of people to do it, whereas now we have a computer that can do it.
I mean,
so.
you had to add every single, it wasn't
Every
even by
every
block.
time you took a piece, and then you'd keep these
every-
running totals until you're trying to get
Right,
hit
it's
these
every
perfect
house
numbers.
in every block that you have to add up.
So the agenda item is
when you do it
motion
by
and
hand.
possible discussion and possible action.
Just a minute.
Mayor, What are you looking for?
I'm looking, are Darlene, Wurzel, and Corbin, are all those new members to that commission?
No, Don Wurzel served 10 years ago also.
Okay, thank
So
you.
Darling and Corbin were new members. And each party appointed one of them.
Any other questions before we have possible action?
Or specifically for me, I can,
Yeah.
I can sit down, you guys can debate.
I guess I want to be clear. I'm not questioning anyone's integrity, right, for wanting to have a commission. I'm wanting to create a public process for something that I think was intended to be a public process and not a government process, right? I think that there is public committees created for oversight on something like redistricting in order to preserve voting in a public, the most public possible way, which is why I think we should have at least a call. If we can't get anybody to sign up, we can't get anybody to say, and I'm not asking that they draw the lines on the map. I'm just saying they come to the meetings, they work with John, they work with Wanda, they work with Jeremy. And when it comes down to it and our lines are drawn, everyone feels like it was an open, fair, and transparent process.
Okay, any other,
They can do that, though. So
Right.
we don't have to do anything. I mean, we can just,
Yeah, just put it out there.
yeah.
We don't have to name anybody, we don't have to have a formal committee. We can just ask people that are interested to attend the meetings, and
But if they're officially named, then the meetings are also then created around them, right? Otherwise, it's a meeting at 8 a.m. that who knows if,
it's a standing meeting, sure. I mean, yeah.
so you'd probably have to have names in by, well, the end of this week would be the 20th if they're gonna be working next week on it.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, is there any,
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah,
thanks,
no
Ben.
problem.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
You learn something new every day. All right, so. So the action is to put forth a request.
Janelle, you gonna go? You gonna, if they do redistricting meetings, are you gonna go? Okay, well, I mean, Jeremy, Abby, Janelle, that'd be 3.
Well, you really gotta let her have more time than 2 seconds to
so
know
are we
if she wants to
officially,
get
so I
involved
have
or
a que-
not.
are we officially asking Jeremy to be involved in this process? We haven't even done that yet. So are we going to say, Jeremy, we want you to attend redistricting meetings? Is that where we're headed?
Well, you did offer to me.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
And he knows how to use the tools
Yeah.
to be able to view the maps independently.
Right.
It does.
So, I mean, that makes sense to me. And someone who's doing a senior paper and is
Have
interested in the
Abby-
political
Abby on
process,
it
who's a
too.
resident of Decorah, seems like a logical person, you know, to have on. All we need is one other person, and if Janelle's not free, we can probably find somebody else. So, you know, that's 3.
As long as the news people get it out that if there's one person that's interested.
Yeah, or more, because like Randy said, anybody can attend.
Oh, that's right, that's right. Okay, any further discussion, any further action? Hearing none. I want to thank Abby for coming. We'll look forward to seeing more of you. We usually have a Luther person up here. I'm just hinting. So, okay. Consider contribution level to Sunflower Daycare Center, Discovery Center. Let's see. You
Okay,
wanna-
Laura Priest and Stephanie Fromm are going to just, do you want to just talk a little bit about the Discovery Center and the CAT grant piece before council deliberates too much? Actually, we talked about this at the last meeting, and so we have it on here tonight to just discuss the big picture, how much you might want to, that you would contribute over a 5-year period. And then they had a little information about the CAT grant and what can be used as contributing numbers for that. So I'll turn it over to
Sure.
them.
Thank you guys for letting us come. Just to reiterate a couple things. So the Discovery Center and Child Development Center are literally the same facility. First, I want to make that clear. It's in the same building. It's 2 different wings. And Sunflower was asked specifically if they would separate out their indoor play spaces so that those could be shared with the public. This is a benefit to the public as well as to Sunflower, because if the public can come in and pay a membership or day use fee, they can certainly help pay for the childcare. That's what they're doing. So they're giving money to Sunflower to use some of their indoor play space. The public would be, a tourist would come with their family, and then that money would be used to help pay a living wage to the childcare worker, which we talked about at the last meeting, and help pay for insurance. So without the Discovery Center income, the only recourse that the childcare would have would be to raise rates to cover the cost of increased wages and or health care. Right now they don't have health care. So that was one of the things we talked about last time. Another thing we didn't talk about a whole lot was the CAT grant itself, which is due on the 27th of August. You cannot submit the CAT grant, and I think you've heard this from another entity that has a project going. You can't even walk in the door unless the city contributes. You can't walk in the door if the county doesn't contribute. So the county has contributed at $500,000 specifically for the Discovery Center, understanding that is a major part of the business plan for the child care. And also, remember we said during the day, Sunflower's plan is to allow other child cares, homeschoolers, school groups, others, to use the facility as they're scheduled in. And so you just have to make sure you don't have too many kids in there or you're gonna be over your fire code. So really it's, the intent is to benefit everybody as much as possible. So the county, like I said, contributed the whole $500,000 to the Discovery Center part of the facility specifically. There's another reason to do that we didn't talk about at the last meeting, and that has to do with grants. So Decorah's median household income does not lend itself to any of the child care centers getting grants. In other communities, you can walk in and try to get a CDBG grant from the state of Iowa, and you probably get it for child care at around $600,000. You can't do that here. None of your child cares in Decorah are going to be able to do that. Sunflower certainly can't. Your median household income is too high. So we were able to secure one child care grant for furnishings and equipment, but you can't get it for the facility. And that was a different funding source that was only available to child cares, and we were limited based on how much the whole facility costs overall. So part of it can be used in the Discovery Center, because that is part of the child care, theoretically, right? They'll use that play space, and part of it is used in the child care rooms themselves. But there really aren't a lot of other grants we're going to be able to go after, federal or state, for child care, because the way the federal government has set those up is to come through the CDBG granting program, and those are for low to median income communities. So then what do we do? Because we want to leverage as much state and federal money as we possibly can. Well, that's another reason why those indoor play spaces are separated from the child classrooms, because it creates this whole new space that can be used by the public, and it creates a tourism venue. So I might come to go on the Trout Run Trail and go on to the Discovery Center now, because now I might stay overnight because there's something else for my kids to do at night. Or I might even come in the winter on a weekend when there's not much else to do, but I want to come someplace where I can take my kids and they can play inside at the Discovery Center, and we can do some other things, go down to Downlands, whatever, right? So it creates a tourism attraction, and that's why we can submit a CAT grant if you give the money for the Discovery Center. And I don't want you to get confused about that, because the contribution to the Discovery Center is going to help the child care. It's going to help it financially. And remember, all the child care kids play there. That's their indoor play space. But it helps us leverage more state money. And just 2 weeks ago, Economic Development Authority, or I guess it was longer than that now, three or 4 weeks, Economic Development Authority announced they received $3 billion in the America Rescue funds, and they are redistributing those. In our region, I think there's about, not $3 billion, but we get about $10 million for the tourism venues, and so we'll also submit that. But again, that'll be for the Discovery Center, because we can't get it for the child care. So ultimately, what we'll do is we'll build the funds that we need to get the childcare paid for with those state and federal funders, the Discovery Center side of it. And then we'll be able to use more private fundraising that we have got toward that childcare part of it. And it'll make the whole thing financially feasible. So what we would ask, two things really. One, we've been talking about this, I think our first time we presented to the Betterment Committee was in April, but we've been talking about it a lot. I hope we've answered all your questions. The grant's due on August 27th. It used to be that the CAT grant, you could apply quarterly. That's not the case anymore. Now it's once a year. So if we miss it, we just miss it. We can ask for up to $1 million. It's all a formula. It's formula-based, and it's fairly complicated. We have to have 65% of the funds raised. You're required to have donations from city and county. So there are certain things you have to meet to even walk in the door. And then we have to make the argument for the project after that, and then they'll consider it. Now, I know they have 70 applications coming in, at least, that they know of, and they only have $5 million. We also know that Debbie Durham was here, and she loved the project. So we're hoping that works in our favor. And she advises to ask for the most we can. What we ask for will be limited by the amount of money we've raised. So for the Discovery Center, because I can't count anything raised solely for the child care. The majority of the private donations and business donations we've got are going to be divided. This isn't the grants, but this is just those private donations. Unless they said otherwise, those will be divided in the percentage that the facility serves the use. And so unless somebody told us this is all for the Discovery Center like the county did, we have to use part of those funds for childcare, part of those funds for Discovery Center. So, is there anything I forgot?
Would you say the 60% had to be funded of the entire project, or the
65% of the project as we submit it, which will be the Discovery Center,
Yeah, okay.
we have to have the funds secured for. So, and that depends. We'll work out that budget based on how much money we have, which is about as clear as mud. But you have to look at the layout of the Discovery Center and childcare in its entirety. And then if we raised enough money, we could count a % of shared space, right? I don't know that we can reach that. That would allow us to ask for more. I mean, ideally, we'd be able to ask for $1 million, right? So if you count shared space, you could say up to 40% of the facility is Discovery Center, right? So that we could leverage more money. But depending on how much we have in contributions. And we are waiting for some really big ones. They're going to make decisions this week. And that might bump us up. But the more we have for the Discovery Center, the more we can ask from CAT, and the more we can ask from the Economic Development Authority.
So I think I know Wanda had suggested different sources of where the funding could come from. But the goal would be is if the council could determine how much they could give, knowing where some of those sources were going to be funded, that would be what they would need for
Yep.
the information
So
for the grant.
And we identified those last time. It was your general fund, hotel motel, sustainability, and your storm sewer fund were the main funds. But like I said, it's kind of a moving target how much funds are available each year. So rather than, commit to a rigid contribution schedule out of each fund for 5 years, just an overall, okay, we want it to be 250. We want it to be 500. We want to give 400 over the next 5 years. So, I mean, let's think big picture. Now, you can use the American Recovery Funds for that as well. We did get in the $574,000, so I have got that as we speak. But some of those funds can be used for tourism, and the Discovery Center would be the tourism piece, if you chose to do that.
Are there limits in the percentage that can be used for tourism of that money?
No. I haven't gotten anything that says that.
Is that, how much are we getting total in that amount of money?
Well, it's over about 1.3 million. A little less, but, yeah.
Wanda, when does,
Right.
Right.
County
when does the
choosing it.
28E for Fairfield End expire? Or paid down?
I wonder, okay, you're
22.
taxing my memory here, and I'm going on memory, but I'm thinking it's this year.
Yeah, I think it is this year.
Yeah.
What are you asking?
We had
So it's
entered in,
also money for the
Fairfield.
yep, we had committed,
development fund.
we had committed X number of dollars to help with the removal of the Cliff House building and the renovation and whatnot. But if that's paid off this year, then,
How much was that?
135,000 a year.
2 Decorah jobs.
but we also have to enter in, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have to enter into a 28E agreement with someone to provide the pass-through of public funds.
Ross, I did say that last time, or I said that may be a possibility.
I took you at your word.
I looked into it a little bit further, and I found something from the state auditor trying to parse out where the state auditor says you have to have a 28E and where you don't. And there actually is some kind of informal guidance that I found from the state auditor. Excuse me. It's really small type. And the question asked was specifically, and this is from 2021, is sufficient daycare an economic development tool to attract business to the community, because economic development is a proper use of public funds. And yeah, the auditor said, yes, you can do that, but you need to be able to tie something in with a written agreement that satisfies that the funds are used for the allowed purpose. So 28E is the primary thing that the auditor recommends. I think it could also potentially be arranged through, the auditor also suggests a contract for services, but I'm also thinking maybe an easier route is a resolution contingent on, whatever you want, quarterly reports every 6 months. And if I understand it right, are you talking about paying this out over a period of time? So, yeah.
Well, potentially,
Yeah.
depending on what direction they decide to go.
So my point was, we've been expending $135,000 a year in economic development, knowing that the residual is left for other activities and trail maintenance and park and rec and whatnot, because we do have 600 acres of park. But if we just said, okay, we're good with that $135,000 going to an economic development activity, and we consider boosting in the Discovery Center and boosting childcare, an economic development activity, if we did that over 5 years, that's $675,000.
So what you're saying is we use the 138 that we've been essentially,
135, yeah.
that we've been giving to Fairfield.
Right.
Now we're gonna switch that.
But it's through economic, we've been giving it to economic development.
Yeah, it's actually to Decorah jobs, and that is to pay down the mortgages on the allocation that we had. We had given $500,000 to the development of the Bluffs Inn site, so that was a $1.2 or $1.3 million to redevelop, to take down the bluffs, and that's what we put $500,000 cash towards. And then at that same time, the hotel was happening, we actually finished Sweet Parkway within the business park, and the match for the RISE grant, Decorah Jobs, took a mortgage out, and that was $350,000 at that time. It was a 1-to-1 match. It was a state of Iowa DOT grant, and that finished 750 feet of road, curb, all of that. That provided transportation all the way back to the water tower in the business park, which also allowed access to, I think, I don't even know, 86 additional acres or something like that. And so that all happened, and then in the meantime, I think it was 3 years ago, Decorah Jobs then took on another note or another mortgage, because the 28-acre Orvella property that's located adjacent to the business park, which is also along the infrastructure, that sewer and water that we had spent years trying to get up to the business park. Decorah Jobs took on that and purchased that for, I don't even know, 700 and some thousand, I think it was at the time. Don't quote me on that. But we did also take a mortgage out for that. And now, this past month or two, we finally closed on an easement. Decorah Jobs just closed on an easement for the DOT. That was a 3-year process that we had put in a request to the DOT, and it basically squares off that Orvella property. If you go up there and you look at it, you can see where the high lines kind of cut back into the field, and that used to be, that's a DOT right-of-way where the highway used to run, and then they straightened it out years ago. So we had put in a request to say, hey, would you ever just part with that 3 acres so we could swear off this land and make it more appealing, because right now they're, you know, way back in that parcel. And finally, the governor just signed off on it, I don't know, right before our last Decorah Jobs meeting 3 weeks ago. So that sale is final now too. So right now, I mean, I can give, I should actually come back and give a Decorah Jobs update on financials,
Good
progress, and projects, but there's been a lot of moving pieces since that $135,000 was put in place 5 years ago almost. And just the cash flows of just making ends meet and promoting that park to try to generate sales. That group has done so much and carried a lot. I mean, they've made a lot of progress in the last 6.5 years that I've been a part of them. And I'd hate to see them financially at risk if the 135 was taken from them and given to another project, because all of that is mortgaged.
But it is a jobs project, right?
If you want to lose your business park, that's probably what would happen. Like, all of that is mortgaged out there. So if Decorah Jobs just goes belly up, the banks now own the business park, is what would happen.
But the 135 is just to pay off, was to pay off what is just retired, right?
That's to pay off all of the projects that have been put into place, yeah.
So it wasn't just the Fairfield mortgage that it was paying off?
It was at the time when I started this role 6.5 years ago, I think they had like $300,000 in their bank account, 350, I think it was. And we're like, all Toppling Goliath happened at that time, and they said, Toppling Goliath purchases all this land, we have nothing left. Like, what are we supposed to sell? So at that time, Decorah Jobs is like, yeah, let's finish 750 feet of Sweet Parkway. We'll write a grant. Lindsay and I worked on the grant. We got the grant at $750,000 road, was half paid for by the state, and we had to put up that $350 we had in our savings. And then all of a sudden, Fairfield happened, and everyone looked at Decorah Jobs like, what are you going to do? How are you going to prep this site? That's your job. And development's like, we'll just take out a mortgage. We have this land. We'll leverage the land. We'll help pay for the redevelopment of that Bluffton site. We'll generate more hotel-motel revenue, is what happened. So that's how they kind of justified it to the council at that time. I don't know if Randy was there, I think. And they're like, if you give us additional hotel-motel revenue, we'll leverage this money to pay off this redevelopment of the Bluffs Inn. And then what I was told, I mean, there's some people on Decorah Jobs that have been on there for 40 years, but they said, you know, when hotel-motel was first started, and for years after that, Decorah Jobs actually got 50% of that pool of funds. And then they started working on the Trout Run Trail, and they said, hey, we don't have a lot of stuff going on right now. Cut our allocation, cap it at $75,000, and give whatever we can. We want to give whatever we can to the Trout Run Trail project. We want to see this thing through. There was a lot of kind of stakeholders that helped make the trail happen, part of Decorah Jobs at that time. And, you know, don't quote me on all of this because I've just heard it told at a lot of different meetings and sessions. And Steve Zittergren actually was in a meeting just recently with Kirk, and they started talking about that and how it was capped at one time by Decorah Jobs, asking, hey, cap us at 75, give the rest of it to the trail. And then when all of this stuff started happening with the hotel, and we just spent all of our savings on finishing the road to open up more land, they said, wait, we're not going to be able to do this. We're not going to be able to make payments on this unless we start selling lots. So could hotel motel then increase to 135 to help us so that we can keep mortgages happy? And then in the meantime, we actually sold a bunch of land. So Toppling Goliath expanded. We sold a few more lots up there. We got housing development up there, and we said, hey, the Orvella property just happened to come up for sale. That's our only opportunity, really, that makes sense to expand the business park if we want to. And the city, council members at that time were like, let's do it. We took out another mortgage. We actually partnered with all the banks in Decorah. Everyone got an invitation. I think there's like 3 or 4 different banks that partner on that mortgage, and took a chance on a development group that just cares about business.
I think,
But I'm
but-
suggesting that we would
Okay.
provide $675,000 to the childcare.
but I think,
I
you know,
think we
you've got,
should spread it around a little
Right,
bit,
you
though.
can-
We
you
can't take
can
it all
have-
from one pot.
the thing is that you've got opportunities of where it can come from. And clearly, there has to be a discussion to see all the intricacies of that potential money. But the thing is you want to be able to say how much, and then you're gonna know as you go along what you're gonna look at. So it looks like possibly you're looking at a 5-year commitment, just
Right.
like the county did. And then how much do you think you want to commit to that, knowing that you're gonna have to look through that as we go along?
Can I ask a question about the
Sure.
CAT grant that's due the 26th? Because that seems like the immediate
Right,
issue,
it
right?
is.
What do you, you're going to list that we're giving this contribution over 5 years, or do you need a certain amount of money for the first year? For that grant, for that particular grant?
You can pledge it.
Okay,
The county's not doing 5 years. They talked about it, and they want to do it all out of their rescue funds, and
Okay.
so
Sure.
there's a
Okay.
limit. Do you remember the time, Ben? That has to be spent by. So they're specifically taking.
I
that
get it,
wasn't-
okay.
Yeah.
So we don't have to hand you whatever we hand you in 1 year for the grant. It can be a 5-year,
Just a commitment.
just to be clear on that.
Yep, you just have to, I just have to show them your minutes that you are going to contribute that.
Sure. So we need a number and a year commitment, and we can
Right.
figure out where it comes from, but we know, so just in that history that was like a walkthrough time, at some point, Jobs was always getting 75,000, and then when Fairfield came, they were getting 138. 135. So even if we went and we didn't take it all from economic development, we could go back to 75, 74, and 74 out of that could come.
Yeah, we don't have to figure it out.
Well, you don't have
Yeah.
to figure out where stuff comes from. You know the potential. What you have to figure out is how much are you willing to give? I know at one point, I think we talked about 250,000. And somebody said, well, let's try and match what the county says, which is 500 and some thousand. And so we're trying to find,
I think wow, I don't know why that happened. I had heard 250. That's weird. Someone else talk.
well, try it again, see if it,
Okay. I had heard 250 being mulled around, which seems easier. Coming up with the 500 seems harder, only in light of a fire station. And I think in my mind, when I think about the Economic Recovery Act, my understanding is we also are looking at flood resiliency and pumps, which for the city is an enormous expense. And that somehow we're going to have to figure out how to pay for. So it's hard for me to want to use that money for anything other than flood resiliency work. I think so it's easier. Like, I love the 600,000. I'm like, oh, if we can do that, that'd be great. It's just harder if we don't have a list of how we're doing it to give more than 250. But then I want to say, then if we have other pots in other years, maybe we do give more at that point. But I'm not sure.
Well, all of those 28 Es for Decorah Jobs and Hotel Motel come up in, is it 22? May of 22 or May of 23? Or March 22? So they'll all be coming up in the next 8 months. I think it would be very doable if we took 250,000 out of the recovery fund for this and then pledged 50,000 a year out of the franchise fee.
I think that sounds like a great idea.
Which franchise fee?
The
well,
electrical.
there's only,
What?
From the Alliant franchise fee.
Well, we committed 100,000 to do the sustainability plan. So we already took money away for Forester. We have big projects in that list that might come up. I guess, I'm not comfortable saying to.
But this is the big
sustainability.
project that's in front of us now, and it's a big, important
Yeah,
project.
but you're asking for $50,000 from sustainability when we already as a council declared that $100,000 to go towards sustainability. Of what this is a piece, and I agree with that, but 50,000 is almost half their budget, since we are already paying our forester out of it. It's actually more than
Half their budget or half our budget?
Our budget, but the budget we already designated to sustainability. We designated to sustainability.
This project is sustainability because it's a
We
job
gave them a
creation.
plan. We gave them a giant plan and said, implement this plan. And all we do is rip away their funding. That's not fair.
They also have committed to the child care.
Yeah, but I don't think they're committing half their budget to do it.
No, I think it was 10,000.
Right.
And I don't know if that was over a certain period of time or what it was.
I think we could ask them for 10,000 a year for 5 years. I don't
Well,
think
then
that's
Randy,
sustainability.
I would agree with you. If that's a motion, I wouldn't put any contingencies on where the money comes from, but I'd support the 250. And then after 2080s come up, if there's more money and other activities that we can be involved in regarding childcare, that's great.
So is
You're
it
talking
50?
about a motion for 500,000, for,
250.
In how many years?
From the recovery. and
no,
then
you're talking about a motion for 500, with 250 coming from recovery, and another 250
Okay.
to be named later.
Well, I wanted to put the franchise fee on it so we could see some good come out of that
Well,
additional tax on.
I agree
I-
too. I think that'd be the
I
smart.
do,
That's too-
but I
I'll vote
do
no,
think
too.
you have to look, I do think you have to look in respect to lots of different pieces. So if you're looking at 500,000 for 5 years, that's where you get 250,000 from recovery and 50,000 a year to make it up to 500,000. Is that correct?
I am comfortable with 250. I am not comfortable with 500. Staring down a fire department, road work, sustainability work, flood resiliency. We just met with the fire department where we were talking about every location we talked about being at risk for floods and $1 million per pump. So I get it. Childcare is a huge issue, and I want to do something. And if we can have a map, a roadmap of how we spend money over the next 5 years that I'm looking at, and I feel comfortable with 500, that's great. But you're asking for a pie in the sky number right now. 250 feels like we got this, but 500,000 seems like we're asking. We're going to be looking at that pump when a flood hits, thinking, "Wish we'd invested." I don't know. That's
I'd be more inclined toward 350.
I like the 500,000 in light of the last population census as well, and Decorah declining. I'm tired of hearing about people not moving here because of they can't find childcare. You look in the newspaper, there's dozens of jobs that no one's applying for. And we have a project in front of us, like Kirk said.
what if we could ask for housing? We don't have any leeway.
So what I was trying to say is I would be more inclined toward 350,000 from the recovery money. And then we figure the balance up to 500 from the 5 years of either whether it's general fund, whether it's hotel motel tax.
I can go along with that, Steve. I think that sounds like a decisions to, we'll just make some decisions later about that remaining,
Well,
150.
that's basically what we're asking, not to have specifics.
Right.
So you're
Because
saying
you are going to have to look at everything.
350 of recovery money.
Correct.
And then that would mean,
Every year? Or just?
No.
No,
no,
we don't get
350
recovery money every
recovery.
year.
Got it.
And then it would be whatever it is to make it up to 500 in 5 years.
Okay, you
But
have
just
a
to put-
motion on the floor.
I'm just
Okay,
gonna,
but
so
did
this is
we-
discussion, right?
Did we have a
Discussion?
second to that motion?
No, but you
We
do
have
have
a
the
motion
motion,
on
so.
Okay.
Okay, let it die.
All right. I'm looking for a second. Hearing none.
Okay.
It died, so
My only
now
point was that
discuss.
we also have the opportunity for fast fiber, which also does not apply, does not allow for CB, Community Development, CDBG grants because of our income status. We've done an RFI. We know that we require some participation to have fiber to the home. That's why I was hoping to not tie it to recovery money. So I have no problem voting for 350, but I would prefer not to earmark funds in the motion.
I would vote for 350 and not earmark.
Okay.
But
350 total?
350 total, non-earmarked commitment.
So you're talking about 350 over 5 years?
Correct. Or with the option, obviously, of giving it up front if council has the ability, but we have until 2024 to spend that.
You can figure out how much or where you're gonna take it.
So the motion has died, so I can make another motion, correct? And I'm gonna make a motion that Steve just I mentioned a little bit ago. I move that we spend $350 from the emergency funds and $150,000 for the child care center from funds that we'll discuss at a later time. And maybe spread those out.
So wait, now you're proposing 550.
I'm sorry, yeah, 150, or yeah, 100, well, hang on.
Okay,
No,
No,
it's
150,
150.
yeah.
350 plus
yeah.
150?
It's
So-
500.
That's
Yeah,
500.
That's 500.
do you want any of that to go specifically to the
I want
Discovery
all of
Center?
it to go specifically toward the,
Recovery Center?
Discovery
the-
Center?
Discovery
Yes.
Center.
I'll second.
So, and that's for 5 years, over 5 years.
So 350 of recovery, and we're going to find 150 somewhere else.
yes.
Mhm. Okay, so that's a motion made by Kurt, seconded by Andy? No, Randy. Okay. Any other discussion?
Can you restate it one more time?
Okay, the motion is to use 350 from recovery money for the Discovery Center specifically, or do you want the whole 150 to go, or the whole 500 to
The
go?
whole 500 to the Discovery.
Okay, so the whole 500 will go to the Discovery Center specifically, 350 from recovery money, and then the other 150 to be determined year by year. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay, over 5 years.
Okay, any further discussion?
I like the motion a lot, but I also want to draw attention to Ross's statement about we had a very successful referendum in town about doing fiber to the home, and we've really got to get serious about meeting our constituents' desire to have that happen.
Noted, they're noted.
Noted.
Any other further discussion? Roll call?
Johnson,
Aye.
Chisel,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Carlson,
Aye.
Luce.
Aye?
Motion carried. I think you have your information. And I do think it would be a good thing that we talk when you can come and give us an update, other
And
than the
thank-
one you just got done.
And thank you for coming. Thank you for coming and for your work.
Yeah.
I hope that the grant magic gods favor you.
And for the information
Thank
you
you.
gave us in the
Thank you.
Dropbox, thank you.
Can I just say one thing? I don't know if I'm allowed. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Sure.
Is the first, but second, I want you to consider economic development a resource to get grants for these other things.
Oh,
Specifically, the
Yes.
wire, I just
Yep.
sent some information, I know they already got it, to Chopper and Wanda about the MetroNet stuff and just about federal grant opportunities for that. And certainly stormwater, Jeremy and I we were asked by Debbie Durham to submit a large proposal for water quality, which Jeremy just gave me, I think, almost $1 million in projects to go into that proposal. So I don't want you to think we don't know you guys have other things to work on.
I appreciate that offer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So-
Thank you.
Thank you for the acknowledgement.
Okay. Consider approval of a donation and development agreement with the Winnebago County Veterans Memorial Association for installation of a memorial at Mary Christopher Park.
Okay, Jeremy and Tom Rhodes, our Assistant city engineer and John have been working very closely with the veterans group and they are represented here this evening on this agreement. And so I think I'm just, again, going to turn it over to John if he wants to make a few comments.
And I'll also throw, is Andy Nimrod here?
Oh, yes, Andy
I'm
was
gonna
there too.
throw him in
yes.
on this too.
Sorry, Andy.
And the Veterans Group can maybe give more details about the actual project itself. I'll give you a little background on the way we structured the agreement. Initially, when we talked about doing this, I was told, at least from the city perspective, we were thinking we were going to get the entire project as one project completed and then accept it. And then I believe the Veterans Group looked at it that it, for various reasons, funding and practicality needed to be done in several different phases. So that's one part of it. Another part, the way I wrote this, or we wrote this, we want to make sure it's a donation that's being done, because we're trying to make sure that it limit the city funds that are involved, and really the city funds are not being involved in the project itself, although there's some periphery improvements that are going on at the park, but also to make sure that we're staying compliant with the public bidding rules. And since the Veterans Group is taking 100% responsibility for funding the 3 phases, as well as hiring the contractor, and no public funds are being used for what's described as the actual project and monument, the city's not implemented, or not involved in in any requirement for public bidding. Flip side of that, though, is we also have provisions in here for the city to have control over what the actual project and monuments are. So there's prior approval by the city for the plans, specifications, and then also approval before the city accepts any of the phases. And again, they can describe better the 3 phases, but generally speaking, the first phase, which is intended to be completed by November 11th this year, Veterans Day, is a center monument, and then an approach to that monument and some other things around there. Phase 2 would be, are they monuments more to the various armed services specifically? And then phase 3 would actually be individual monuments that include the names of veterans. And they can correct me if I'm wrong or fill in the gaps in that. And phase 3 is a little bit more open-ended. However, there is a cap because they can only place a certain amount of monuments in the actual park. But it's somewhat of an ongoing process to gather the names.
Can you tell me again what the second phase is again?
Second phase is 5 am I correct? 7 monuments.
Gotcha.
Got Space Force now. We gotta have that on there. For the various branches of the armed services.
I understand now.
And then another part of this is they will, they're going to be establishing a quasi-fund, and Andy can explain the details of that a little bit better. A quasi-fund through the Community Foundation, and that fund will maintain a minimum balance of $10,000. Anything above that can be used for maintenance and part of the improvements. The purpose behind that fund is somewhat of an insurance policy for the city, and it's a small one to acknowledge that. But if something should happen, just to be frank, if something should happen to the group and they didn't complete the project, that fund would be there for the city to help with that. And that's part of the agreement, that if the group dissolves or upon successful completion and acceptance of all of phase 3, the city would get that fund. Okay. And just as far as background on the fundraising, I believe that they have either already acquired or have pledges for all of phase 1 and 2. of the project.
Okay, what questions do you have?
Andy, quasi something fund? Quasi
Quasi-fund.
endowment?
Yeah,
You good? Just give me a thumbs up. All right,
yep.
I'm good.
We've used that, the Friends have that too. It's in the Community Foundation.
The
and
word
you can
quasi just kind of freaks me out.
Well, actually, what it does is the foundation money can't really tap into, but the quasi-fund, if people put money in there, there's always 10,000, they put 10,000 in, and then any money that's in that can be used for updates or whatever. It's a good
I
way
just
to-
didn't,
yeah.
quasi makes it seem
Yeah, it
sketchy.
can. What other questions do you have? I know we've got 2 representatives from the veterans here. This has been a long process, but it's coming along. It's good to have the agreement because it's needed in the future when we're not here and maybe they're not there, but it's taking care of the park in the future too. So it's the motion, or not motion, it's a consider for approval for the donation development agreement with the Veterans Memorial Association for installation of the memorial. Very good to approve.
Second.
Moved by Chisel, seconded by Carlson. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Chisel. Carlson.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Hadley.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Very good. It's fun to see the development of that going on, and it's fun to see people using the park, and then they can watch that grow. So I appreciate all the work that you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please.
Sure. Yeah, if you can come up to the microphone,
I just want to thank you all for your support.
come up and then just say your name and,
Oh, I'm Glenn Larson. I'm the
Thank you.
president of the Veterans Memorial Association. And George Teacup is our resident engineer. He was a veteran. He's been a big help. He's put a lot of man hours in this, along with Andy Nimrod. Between the two of them, they accomplished a lot. This is 3 years that we took to get to this point. And I want to really thank all of you for your support in this, and I think it's something that Decorah can be very proud of.
I think so too.
Yep.
And I
appreciate
got some
you.
information here I'll just leave on the table.
That'd be
to,
great.
If you got relatives or yourself a veteran, fill one of these out and get it names turned in, and we'll be sure your name is on the memorial.
Okay,
So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Glenn.
you.
Thank you, George.
Okay, on to the next one. Consider ordinance 1278, amending chapter 5.28, rental inspections and rental permit fee exceptions, second reading.
I'd move the ordinance 1278, second reading for approval.
Second.
Moved by Lutz, seconded by Chisel. Any discussion?
Comments?
No comments? Any
No
discussion?
comments. No
Roll
comments.
call?
Luce.
Aye.
Chisel. Neal.
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Hadley.
Aye.
I'd like to move to waive the third reading and adopt.
Second.
Motion by Lutz to waive and adopt, seconded by Chisel. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call?
Luce.
Aye.
Chisel.
Aye.
Hadley.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Okay, very good. Consider resolution 3209, renewing Polka parking lot lease.
This is for the parking lot behind the buildings on the
Armory. Yeah.
south side there along Main Street. The last lease was a 5-year lease for $500 a month. And now it's renewing, so we're looking to see if you want to renew that.
I don't think we should. I think we should let it coast and see what market rate brings. I know we have parking challenges in downtown Decorah, but I don't feel like that parking lot alleviates a lot of non-commercial business parking.
You mean you think that it's?
I think there are a couple businesses that use it, but if they want to negotiate with Mark to purchase it, or if Mark decides to sell it and it turns into mixed-use housing or something like that because we're not paying $500 a month. I don't feel like it has as much value as a non-friendly parking lot that we have to plow around people's recreational vehicles or taxis or whatnot. I would rather see the money go to something else.
Sure.
And the old Armory has changed quite a bit in the last 5 years too. There isn't nearly as many businesses there that were there, mixed use.
And the other businesses there, the other businesses right in that frontage area have off-street parking.
Right.
Who's, let's see, maybe it would be PD or street, do you have any indication for us about how many, if it's full, if it's not full, if it's empty? Any input on that?
I think it gets used. The users, probably would agree with Ross's statement. I can tell you it's the street guy's least favorite parking lot to plow. We're constantly dodging vehicles and broke a plow blade on it last year. So, yeah, it has some issues. It's not empty, I'll say that. But as far as the actual users, I don't know if you know, Chief.
I don't think it gets used as it's intended to be used. I don't think there's signage saying free parking here as there is around town. I think it's used as long-term parking by folks.
So I'll actually make a motion to not approve it.
I'll second it.
I don't think we trying to make motions in the negative, do we?
Let's
Well,
see,
you can't, I mean,
well,
or
you
you can
would
just
say-
take no action.
Okay.
I think in the middle of a business assessment that we had done, and we're talking about how to redo our parking and figure out the best way to do it, to get rid of a potential asset, like, isn't necessary, isn't helpful. Signage to help find it, getting to people to it, utilizing it. In my experience in the past, it's been a special event used quite dominantly. I mean, I'm thinking art slams and various things that you can't find.
It's too steep. You can't set up tents and stuff there. There's not
Talk
been.
about parking.
Well, it's still staying in a parking lot, it's just not the city's owned parking lot, right?
Yeah,
So
I
they
mean,
can
Mark can still keep it as a parking lot.
Yeah,
if he
the
wants.
businesses can decide it. It might wind up being, maybe he wants to sell it and it becomes something even more beneficial than a parking lot. Or someone wants to develop apartments on top and keep the parking building below it. I don't know.
Wanda, we're not currently renting any other parking lots, are we?
No.
Okay. Now, this would set a precedent then. We're not going to, when we look at the Painter Street, when we talked to Patrick McDermott, I would assume then that takes that off the table, then that we're not going to explore that, right? As far as renting a parking lot from him, which was his suggestion.
I'm not going to speak to that, but I will say that the area that Patrick's talking about is an easement. It's city land. It's right of way, and we wouldn't be renting it.
It would be a different.
So it would be a different. It would be a different concept altogether.
Oh, okay.
So I hear your snarky cynicism, but I don't feel like this is the same
That
thing.
wasn't what
I
I was
think,
going for.
I was going to say, I don't think I think it was just comparing the potential of
Right.
how that would be viewed.
Right.
Yeah.
Or snarky cynicism, whatever you
All right,
prefer.
so
I
my
can,
question.
I can channel Zittigren and he would say, we don't have a parking problem.
So, so if we don't do anything, there isn't anything we have to do. Okay.
You can just take
When
no
does it
action if you
expire?
want to.
Does it
Yes.
expire this month?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we can let them know that we're not gonna lease it, right? I mean,
Well, I can tell them if you don't take any action, that's pretty clear.
Yeah.
Or if you're more comfortable, make a motion one way or another. I mean, if you're more comfortable doing that, but I don't think you have to. Just don't do anything. John?
Right, you could make a motion, I guess I usually encourage not to make motions in the negative, but there's nothing wrong with doing it.
Then I rescind my negative motion.
Okay.
It
Any
died
other
for a lack
further-
of second.
Any other further discussion on that?
I'd call that a
This is the
snarky motion.
First 5-year lease, the previous history on the lot was that every year we came and we
That's right.
approved it. And so
Well-
that went to 5-year, just did not have to always do it.
Actually, I think it used to be 3 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think
It
What
was,
if we
it was,
try it
it might have
without-
been
for a year,
early,
we'll try
early
it,
on
and if
your
we
year,
wanna-
And
but
Betterment,
then it went to
and
3
Betterment
years.
used to pay for it, right?
No,
No.
Okay.
No?
no.
It's always us?
They had an opportunity to buy it and didn't think they needed it, and then when it came up for rent, they thought the city should rent it.
The city had an opportunity to buy it too and didn't.
Yes, decided not to, and we used to rent it for $300 a month prior to this 5-year agreement.
Okay,
Anyway,
moving right along. Consider ordinance 1279, amending chapter 2.04, city clerk finance officer of the city code.
okay, this came up as a result of our discussions the other night, and changing the name of the position for city clerk treasurer to city clerk finance officer. Then we have to do some changes in the code to reflect that. So there's a lot of wordsmithing in here, changing treasurer to finance officer. And then there was also a couple places that were repetitive. So I just kind of cleaned it up a little bit. And then one place that it referred to sections of the state code that are no longer there. And so I took those off and took those out of it. And I will say, as I looked through several sections of the code, there's places throughout your entire code that refer to the city clerk treasurer. And so short of, redoing your entire city code, there's, and I think as you make changes, you just make that change. That's pretty acceptable, isn't it?
Yeah, that's fine. You could also, in this ordinance, maybe one little amendment could be somewhere in there where you say also known as the city treasurer, or all references in the city code to city treasurer shall be now related to the finance officer, something to that effect.
Right, I thought about that too.
Is that to include to the assistant finance?
Yeah, I changed that
Mhm.
Yeah.
too. So, but like I said, it's just throughout your entire code. Because every time, I won't go on, but
I'd move 1279, amending the city clerk finance officer in the code.
Second.
Moved by Luce, seconded by Chisel. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Luce,
Aye.
Chisel,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
And we need to get this done.
Well, you might
yeah.
want to, given the
I would move
timing.
to waive the second and third readings and adopt.
I'll second.
Motion made by Chisel, seconded by Neal, to waive the second and third and adopt. Any discussion? Roll call.
Chisel,
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Hadley.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Very good. Consider approval of city clerk finance officer job description. Well, we've had discussion, we had discussion of that at the last meeting as well.
Yep, and it's been modified as discussed. And so it's here for your formal approval.
And when does it go to press? When do we publish that ad?
It's out.
They have.
It's out, it went out this week,
Okay, so we better
or last
approve it.
week.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'd make a motion to approve the city clerk finance officer job description as presented.
I'll second.
Motion made by Hadley, seconded by Neal, to approve the city clerk finance officer job description. Any discussion? Roll call?
Hadley.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Chisel. Johnson.
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Discussion and possible action on an agreement with the University of Northern Iowa Center for Energy and Environmental Education for the inventory of greenhouse gas GHS emissions. This was on their budget. It's also one of their goals in the Energy Vision E7th, and it was understood that they needed to come back and request for the $2,500, and so that is what they are doing currently with this.
I make a motion to approve the agreement with the University of Northern Iowa and the Center for Energy and Environmental Education to complete an inventory of greenhouse gas emissions for Decorah.
Second?
Motion made by Neal, seconded by Luce. Any further discussion?
Yeah, is there any follow-up to this that's gonna be other bills coming down our way?
Say that again?
Are there any other bills that once they start this that are gonna
I-
be coming our direction?
I do not believe so as far as this particular piece is concerned.
Only that to lower our greenhouse gas emissions to 0 by 2040, according to our plan.
And it's in Dropbox, Randy. I
Yeah,
mean, it's
yeah,
a,
there is.
it's a set $2,500 agreement.
Right.
Okay,
Okay, roll call?
Neal.
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Carlson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Hadley.
Aye.
Chisel.
all right.
Motion pass. Wanda?
Oh, my. Okay, give me a
Oh,
second.
my, is right. Let's see, I could tell you what you told me in the morning, just in case.
Okay, what did I tell you this morning? It's been a busy day again.
You got the reports done?
Yes, well, the annual report is done. It was published. Very good. The annual report was published last Thursday, and so as soon as I receive that affidavit of publication, it'll be sent to the state as required. I am working on the street finance report. That one's not quite completed yet, but when it is, that will be on the agenda. That has to be passed by resolution. And so anyway, I'm slowly working on some of these yearly reports. The TIF report won't be released yet, so for a while, but I will be gone Thursday. I have a meeting in Des Moines, so I'll be out of the office on Thursday.
Yeah, and you communicated with Travis also, and we know that he's got.
Travis has secured temporary housing, and he will be here the 13th. So his family will be here, I think, this week. So, and then he takes possession of his new home in October.
Okay,
So I think that's all I have.
all right. Jeremy?
The East Main Street project is moving along nicely. The entire project, the street anyway, is all torn up. Working on water and sewer and storm underground work right now, so they're moving along. So far, so good there. Continue to appreciate the residents' patience. They've been great overall, so you know it's a big disruption, so just want to note that. Pole Line Road Bridge is moving along. A couple minor issues there we're working through. Otherwise, again, I'd say that one's on schedule as well. Otherwise, the Dry Run Plaza project, we're kind of stuck in waiting on materials. The pergola and the railing, two pieces that are left there are what we're waiting on for delivery. So
Pergola and what?
the railing, we're replacing the railing around the
Thank you.
box culvert wing walls.
Looks really nice.
Yeah, they did a nice job. That's all.
Anybody else at the table want to contribute to the cause?
Just say real quick that we switched vendors for the install of the equipment in the new squad car. That's why you haven't seen that squad car out. We had it out for National Night Out, which was a big success. First time we've done it, a lot of positive feedback. But the new vendor, during the courting process, made all these promises about, we'll get your squad car in right away, we'll get it outfitted. We signed a contract with them, and now the attitude's changed a little bit, so that's why you haven't seen the new Dodge out, but they're telling us it'll be done in September.
Thanks.
Two things, park board meets on Thursday night, and then also we are entering the last week of public swim at the swimming pool.
Wow.
School opening next Monday. This will be the last week we're open for public swim. However, we've been able to secure a couple adult lifeguards, and we're able to stay open up till the weekend of Labor Day with the adult lap swim and aquasize and that type of thing. So it's been nice.
Great. Mike?
Phase 1 of our renewing our discharge permit has been completed. We're on to phase 2, which will happen next month. Phase 3 gets more complex, and that will actually take place in February. So it's a long process, a lot of testing, a lot of paperwork. We also completed all our the tank inspections at the plant this summer, and every tank passed picture perfect. There wasn't any major malfunctions once we got them drained. Obviously, we don't want a breakdown in the winter because things will freeze. So we always drain everything, make sure all the components are working. Everything's mechanical underwater that's moving, so we have to make sure that it's up to par. And we didn't have to put a dime into anything this last summer. Usually there's roughly about $8,000 usually that gets invested every year. So we're sitting pretty good there.
Great. Anything on the other side of the table?
Just wrapping up summer programming and gearing up for fall. It's been a continued challenge to navigate the changing COVID environment, but we've had really good feedback from attendees about the variety of things that have been available for kids and families this summer. So kudos to Rachel Button, our children's and young adult librarian, for all the hard work that she's put into that. Also wanted to mention that staff member Heidi Sweats, who's been with us for over 15 years and worn really a variety of hats. She'll be retiring at the end of August, so if you happen to see her, please wish her well on a well-deserved break. Otherwise, business as usual, just getting ready for the school year. We are working on updating all of our staff email addresses and our website domain, so please note that if you see that that's changing, we will be fully switching over by October 1st, so you'll want to update your address books.
Great. Okay, Randy.
Nothing this evening, Mayor.
Emily.
A couple things. One, I'm hoping that at our work session, one of the things we can talk about as council is sort of the onboarding of Travis. I mean, obviously he'll be onboarded to city things as well, but how do we take someone to the fire hoses and just like blast it in their face for the next month, and what are the priorities, and how do we as council help them set those priorities?
Okay.
I think we need to get on the same page in terms of what we want those priorities to be for our city manager. And then I also just want to make some comments about sustainability in general in light of some of the discussions that have come up and things I've heard. I think that there is this undiscussed veil of animosity towards the sustainability plan or the money that has been designated there, and I could be completely wrong. So I think it comes from this idea that the Sustainability Commission is all about the MEU, and I want to clear that thought from people's minds in the idea that one of the reasons we wanted a task force was to separate the MEU from the work of the Sustainability Commission. But we have tasked the Sustainability Commission with carbon neutrality by 2040, flood resiliency, communications work, fiber along those lines, a carbon-free waste stream. I mean, there are things in that plan that we task them with a commitment to do in the next 5 years, and that does take funds. And while they haven't sent us a $100,000 bill to spend those funds, as I think every time they come up, everybody has it in their mind that they're saving them for the MEU. I want to assure people they are not saving those for an MEU. What they are saving them for is this idea of what does carbon neutrality look like, because carbon neutrality ultimately saves the city money, right? The idea behind those funds is that we use those funds to create efficiencies to get to earn back the money that we spend, right? And I think, I guess I just want to be open that I don't think of those funds as MEU funds only. I think of them as solar panels. I think of them as car charging stations. I think of them as communication plans and fiber optics things and recycling bins downtown. And all of the things that we put into that plan in good faith, of which the MEU is one line, an entire plan of really great projects that everyone here helped write. And so I guess I just wanted to get that off my chest, because I do feel like every time things come up, we talk about the sustainability money, and then there's this feeling that like they're hoarding it for the MEU, and that is not what is happening. So I just want to be clear about that.
Then let's pull the plug on the MEU task force then.
That is
and
not what
put
I'm
that to
asking.
sleep.
And I think if, I am open to a discussion about the direction of what we do with the MEU, but that should happen in utility meeting.
Yes, I agree.
But
I
not,
agree.
not at the moment.
Thank you.
Nothing at this time, Mayor.
Steve? Luce?
I was reading the League of Cities last magazine, and there's a very interesting bullet-pointed article of the 10 habits of highly effective city councils. And I'd encourage you all to check out those bullet points and eat them. I mean, learn them. And I think Emily points out, I think that we really do need to look in terms of Travis coming, of us thinking what are our visions, what are our goals, as it comes up in that 10 highly effective habits. So please, let's be thinking using our work sessions more than just an extended committee meeting, but also as another opportunity to actually do some planning and thinking about where we're headed.
Thanks.
It's a great idea.
Ross?
Just a quick reminder that we have a street committee meeting after this meeting. I did at the battery ribbon cutting with Alliant, and when everybody was here, had a chance to meet Dr. Ann Kimber from Iowa State. She works in their energy division, and one of her projects that was just grant funded was recycling electric vehicle batteries, post-consumer waste. And one of her goals is to be able to provide backup power for well pumps, and wellheads and solid waste pump stations. So I contacted her and said, you know, congratulations on being funded. Could Decorah be a pilot as part of your grant? And she reached back out and was interested. So I don't know if there's any possibility there, but it's an interesting thing to have backup of our, of our prime utilities in a bad time. And if we can do it as part of a grant-funded project that reduces carbon emissions, all the better, yeah? And that's it, thanks.
Okay. Kirk?
Nothing, Mayor.
Okay, the only thing I have is a reminder, we have an opening on P&Z, and those applications are due August 27th. Also a reminder to anybody who wishes to run for office, you can start submitting your papers and application on August 23rd. That'll be wards 1, 3, 5 at large, and the mayor. Anything else? Hearing nothing? Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.